Hello and welcome to coverage of the final round of Swiss for OGFC's Ulti Pot tournament. Today we have Gh00st playing Gearfried against Sackedo playing Warrior Toolbox aggro. These guys are both X2, so the winner has a chance of making it to the top 8, while the loser will finish with a record of X3 and be eliminated from the tournament. This match is also very interesting because it's the first time that we are featuring an aggro mirror match as the feature match for one of the Swiss rounds. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so it looks like Gh00st has 1 RPS. He's going to choose to go first. So Gh00st is just going to start off with a set back row and then he's going to pass the turn. So Sackedo is going to activate Pot of Greed, drawing 2 cards. He's then going to normal summon Gh00st, and that'll be met with the Torrential Tribute. So something kind of worth noting is a lot of aggro decks generally don't play Torrential Tribute because usually you don't want to nuke your own monsters, and your monsters generally are very difficult to get off the board. A lot of times as an aggro player, monsters will generally stick to the board fairly well. So Torrential can be seen as kind of controversial, and you'll see a lot of lists choosing to omit it. Some do run it in the main deck, but a lot of them do side it. But having said that, that Torrential pays off for Gh00st because it means he doesn't have to discard a card from Gh00st's effect. So he normal summons Blade Knight, attacks for 16, and then sets 2 back row and passes the turn. Sackedo draws a 6 in hand. Normal summons DD Assailant. Gh00st lets the summon go through. Sackedo's going to attack. And that DD Assailant gets run into a Torrential Tribute. So if I'm Gh00st, I'm thinking this is either Dust Tornado or a held Battle Trap. The reason I'm thinking it's a held Battle Trap is because we see that Sackedo immediately summoned DD Assailant to try to run over the Blade Knight, which may explain why he didn't feel like using a Battle Trap on it last turn. But I think if I'm Gh00st, I think it's more likely going to be a Dust Tornado that Sackedo just didn't feel like using because he didn't want to blind Dust there. So Sackedo is going to use Trap Dust Shoot. This Dust Shoot will spin back a Breaker, and we see Heavy Storm, Mirror Force, and Nobleman Crossout as the other 3 cards in Gh00st's hand. He spun those cards to the top of the deck for some reason. I'm pretty sure that they're going to fix that right away. Yep. So they fixed the game state. So if I'm Gh00st, I honestly might Heavy Storm here. Instead he chooses to just buff the Blade Knight to 2k Assuming he set... Honestly, I'm thinking he probably set Storm and Saku. But he could have also chose to hold the Storm for whatever reason. Sackedo's going to try to use Sakuretsu armor, so I got this read wrong. But the fact that it's also Saku also makes sense based on what he did last turn. And Gh00st is going to save the Blade Knight with the Book of Moon. So Sackedo's going to draw... Oh, something's like Kaiku. I think the Kaiku is going to run into the Blade Knight. That's going to be met with the Mirror Force. Now it's pretty clear that, you know, that it was there. Just because the Dushu did reveal Gh00st's hand. So this Blade Knight's going to swing for 2k now. I'm assuming Gh00st is going to set a back row and pass. Yep. So things don't look too great for Sackedo here. This Blade Knight at 2k is going to be hard to get over for him. He does end up having his own though. So he's going to set one. And probably either ram the Blade Knight or just pass. He's going to pass, okay. So this is very common in aggro mirror matches. A lot of the times you don't really want to leave your board open because that means you'll be taking damage for no reason. But at the same time, you also don't want to attack in fear of a battle trap, like an opposing battle trap. So a lot of times what you'll see people do is they'll just summon a monster and just sit on it. And then they'll kind of draw pass until they can establish some sort of push. And this looks like exactly what Sackedo is choosing to do right now. Having said that, Gh00st tops a Wanghu, and he's going to crash his Blade Knight into Sackedo's Blade Knight. And then just swing with a Wanghu for 17. Which to me is a pretty good trade. Sackedo's going to drop down to 27. And he could top a monster to make this a favorable game state for him, but until then... Oh, okay, never mind. We see a Kaiku right off the bat. So this Kaiku is going to attack into the Wanghu and kill it by battle. And it's going to banish the Blade Knight in Gh00st's graveyard. So now it looks like Gh00st is in a pretty bad spot. That's clearly not a battle trap. But he does top Rhoda, so that's nice. This Rhoda's probably going to get him a Blade Knight. Yep. He's going to normal summon the Blade Knight. And the summon's going to be negated with Solemn Judgment. So now it looks like Sackedo is actually in a good spot. He has a monster on board, the back row is clearly dead. And Gh00st is basically top decking for his life right now. Sackedo is on very, very low life, but if he can stabilize his board state and just maintain the pressure, I think he's likely going to win this game, honestly. So he's going to summon the Blade Knight and establish a pretty fast clock on Gh00st. If Sackedo helps a monster, he does win next turn. And the Blade Knight being at 2k also means that it'll be hard for Gh00st to run over. He'll likely have to crash another Blade Knight, but he's already gone through 2. And the fact that the Kaiku's there also means that Prem and Call won't be good top decks from Gh00st's end. Okay, you can swing for 18, and the Blade Knight's going to attempt to swing, but get met with the Sakuretsu armor. The fact that Mirror Force and Torrential are both also in Gh00st's graveyard means that Sackedo can probably play pretty liberally and just commit threats however he pleases to. He doesn't really have to worry about a Mirror Force wiping out both of his monsters, so he doesn't have to make this odd choice of choosing whether or not he wants to play into Mirror Force or settle for less damage. So yeah, within like basically like 2 turns, Sackedo has turned this around, and the life totals are near identical at this point. Sackedo tops Breaker, so that's going to be pretty huge. Tarantule's gone, so he has really nothing to be worried about here. I would just pop this set and then just swing for lethal, because it looks like the back row is basically dead. Like, sorry, this back row is basically dead. Right here. So, the Breaker summon is going to be negated by Solemn. The reason why this ended up becoming Solemn when I moused over it while it was set was because I'm actually analyzing the replay of this game. I wasn't able to catch this game live, unfortunately, due to illness. And the Kaiju just swings for game, and yeah, that's going to be it. So I think what Gh00st was basically anticipating there was the fact that, you know, maybe it was like a Book of Moon that he held for a long time, but I'm pretty sure like Sackedo would have just swung anyways, and choosing to be brave there actually won in the game. So let's look at the side decks. So I think from Gh00st's perspective, he's likely going to side in his Mobius, most likely his Dekoichi, and maybe Morphing Jar to support the Mobius and to give himself floating tribute fodder. Most likely a Smashing Ground, both bottomlesses, and maybe the second Dust Tornado. In terms of what would come out for him, I think most of the hand control stuff should come out. So Dust Shoots and Smoke Grenades and Nobleman of Crossout as well. Maybe Azura comes out, because Azura is generally kind of subpar against most aggro decks. It's a spirit, so it has neck tempo, and it doesn't really run over anything. Beyond that, I'm not really sure what else could come out, but I think that's enough of a good framework to work with. Just in terms of, you know, like, creating space for what he would want to bring in. From Sackedo's end, he'll probably bring in his third Blade Knight, Exiled Force, Shower on the Mage, probably Heavy Storm, and probably his Book of Moons. He'll likely want to take out his Dust Shoots, potentially his Magic Drains, because aggro usually doesn't play a lot of spells, and probably his Nobleman of Crossouts. Sackedo may also choose to side in some more subpar cards in the matchup, like he sides in Azura Priest, so maybe he could throw in Azura Priest or something to make up room for one of his side outs, and then maybe he could also throw in like Swords of Revealing Light or something to stall. So yeah, that's what I think should come in from his end. Alright, looks like the players are ready to go. So Gh00st is going to choose to go first, again, most likely. So Gh00st is going to start with Pot of Greed, which is very good. He's then going to set 4 back row and pass the turn. Sackedo draws. Activates Graceful Charity. Discarding Mind Crush and Sinister Serpent. So Sackedo actually chose to side in Mind Crush, which to me is kind of interesting, because usually you don't really want hand control against most aggro decks. They usually just don't have a hand, because they usually commit everything that they draw to the board. Which is also why I suggested siding out Dust Shoots earlier, but it looks like Sackedo's going for a different route in terms of how he wants to approach the aggro matchup, which is, in my mind, like, not great, but I guess it's not the worst thing. Just gonna normal summon DD Warrior Lady. That's going to be met with Bottomless Trap Hole. And then Sackedo's going to set 4 back row and pass the turn. So the only reason I think Sackedo would set 4 is because Gh00st has already set 3. He probably has a Solemn Judgment, so Storm isn't really a threat. And even if he didn't have Solemn, like, he probably just thinks that there's a very low chance that Gh00st is going to be willing to nuke all of his back row, even if he does have Storm. So you see a breaker come down from Gh00st's end. Sackedo's thinking if he wants to respond. Chooses not to. So this breaker is going to pop. Let's see what it pops. It pops Sackedo's armor. So I think if I'm Gh00st, I'm pretty happy about that, honestly. Breaker popping Saku is usually like probably the best case scenario outside of popping Mirror Force. So it looks like Sackedo's likely going to take 16 here. Yep. I think Gh00st is going to choose to set 2 and then pass his turn. In the end phase, we see a Dust Tornado on the last set, which ends up being Sackedo's armor. Sackedo draws to 2 in hand. Things don't look good for him right now. Gh00st went +1 off the pot, and then went for another +1 off the breaker. So he's at 6 cards to Sackedo's 4. Sackedo gets his Serpent back though, so it's more so 6 to 5. But Gh00st is going to be drawing 7. Let's see what Sackedo does here. Nearly any monster he draws, though, will be able to run over this breaker. But having said that, I don't think the attack is going to go through. Even though... Yeah, I don't think the attack's going to go through. Even though he did use Dust Tornado on his Sackedo armor. So Sackedo's going to go for Rhoda. Most likely for Deity Assailant, most likely. Either Assailant or Blade Knight. Those are Blade Knight. So he's likely going to summon the Blade and then instead of back row, attempt to punch over the breaker for 400 and then pass the turn and sit on a 2k body from there. So you do see the Blade Knight come down. We see a Snatch Steal though on the breaker, and then looks like Gh00st lets the Snatch go through. He's going to take 16 from the breaker, and then the Blade Knight gets met with Saku. Okay, so this to me telegraphs that Gh00st has some sort of... Gh00st might have some sort of way to get back the breaker. Either that or like he just wants the life from Snatch. I think using the Saku and the Blade Knight is infinitely better than using Saku and Breaker though, so I think regardless of what he has, he made the right choice in terms of what the Saku. Actually, I don't know. I don't think it really telegraphs anything in hindsight. It's just obviously better to Saku, the Blade Knight over Sakuing the Breaker. Because even if he doesn't have like spell shot removal, if he draws it later on, it's just going to be better. Alright, so we see Gh00st get his own Blade Knight. I think he's likely going to attempt the same play that Sackedo attempted last turn. Just normal summon Blade Knight, set a back row. Oh, but the summon gets met with Solemn Judgment. Sackedo's going to drop to 32, but he's going to going to be able to negate the Blade Knight's summon. So unless Gh00st has Revival here, I think he's likely going to have to pass his turn after setting some back row. And that's what he does. Sackedo knows someone's Donzaloo. Yikes. Fortunately though, Gh00st is holding a Torrential Tribute. And just like the first game, he uses TT on that Donzaloo. Had that Zaloo gone through, I think it would have ended the game, quite frankly. His Gh00st would literally be on nothing. And he'd be top decking to save his life, essentially. He does have a good chunk of life to work with, but still not really a position you want to be in at all. We see a Grace, and the Grace ends up going through. So we're going to see Compulse and Dust Shoot discarded. No, someone's Gearfried. Yeah, I think this Gearfried's gonna hit for 18. Yep. Sackedo's going to drop down to 14. He does lose the ring here, which is kind of scary. But it doesn't look like Gh00st has it, I think. Yeah, he doesn't. So Gh00st is going to set one and pass. This could also be a ring, quite frankly. Sackedo ends up setting what I believe is probably going to be Serpent, because we did see him recur it in an earlier turn. And we see Gh00st summon another Gearfried. He actually draws one per turn. I think that's going to be it. Yeah, and Sackedo just skips it up. So on to game 3. Sackedo's going to choose to go first. He's going to start with a Graceful Charity. Does he have the Serpent again? Like he did in a previous game? Does not. Ends up discarding Abyss Soldier and DD War Lady instead. So the Abyss Soldier discard I understand. The DD War Lady discard only makes sense even if he has another monster in hand, which he does. Has that Blade Knight. Now Blade Knight's going to set at 16 though instead of 2k. Looks like Sackedo has a Dust Shoot. Does indeed have a Dust Shoot. So this Dust Shoot's going to spin back. The Blade Knight. We see Rhoda, Compulse, Duo, Dust Shoot, and Sakuretsu Armor. Alright, so Gh00st goes for Duo here. I don't know if I like this play, because one thing I could see him doing is he could Rhoda for Blade Knight. And then try to punch over this. It's either going to go through or it's going to bait out Saku. And then if he top decks another monster, then maybe he can punch over the Blade Knight that way. But as of right now, like if he chooses not to do that, he has to either summon DD War Lady or he has to Saga the Blade Knight and then just pray that Saga doesn't draw a monster. I think just potentially making the aggressive play might have been correct, but it doesn't seem like that's the line of play that Gh00st chose to go with. Gh00st is going to set 3 and pass his turn. see Sackedo drew another Blade Knight. So this was kind of like the worst case scenario that I was alluding to earlier. So we're going to see a Sackedo in one of them, but now I think Gh00st is going to be hard pressed to kind of deal with this. I think he has to probably Rhoda for DD War Lady or Exiled or something. There's a pot of greed though, so that's pretty nice. Next he uses Rhoda. So he's going to get a Blade Knight. Ooh, and he runs into a second Dust Shoot. That's unfortunate. Oh, that's actually kind of bad for Gh00st. So Gh00st could have played around this by setting the Dust Shoot first, then using Rhoda, and then he wouldn't have 4 cards in hand to be under Dust Shoot. But instead he plays into the Dust Shoot, and this Blade Knight being spun back is likely going to not be great for Gh00st. I mean, either way, I don't think he could have. I don't think Blade Knight was the correct Rhoda call, anyways, because I think he should have went for Exile to pop this, and then maybe sit on Gearfried afterwards. He also just set the DD War Lady, but that's a bit not as good. The Sackedo tops Breaker and slaps it down. This Breaker is going to actually pass Prio. Wow. I guess Sackedo saw Gh00st's hand and just kind of understands like, oh, it doesn't really have anything worth popping immediately. So Gh00st is going to pulse the Breaker. Generally not something you want to do, and then he's going to attack in the Gearfried and take 200. The Gh00st draws. We know he has a Wanghu in hand. This is likely a dead Dust Shoot, I think. And then this is a 100% Dust Shoot actually, and then he's going to draw for turn. Ends up setting a monster, wow. Sackedo ends up setting this, I guess because he might be scared of Jar or something. And the Blade is going to swing for 2k. Yeah. I think Sackedo understands that this is definitely Dust Shoot, so he has no reason to pop it with Breaker. So he's just going to sit with the Breaker at 19. So Gh00st summons his own Breaker. And that's going to be met with a Solemn Judgment. And it looks like Gh00st is just going to scoop it up from there. He can't really do anything. Yeah, he reveals his hand. He just shows him in Kaiku and he's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out of here. So, congrats to Sackedo for finishing X2. He has a good chance of making it to the top cut. While, unfortunately, Gh00st is eliminated from the tournament now. Stick around for top 8 coverage coming very, very soon for OGFC's Ulti Pot tournament. And we'll see you then. Peace.